everybody, to another episode of the TPT Podcast, the TPT Podcast, the TPT Podcast. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the TPT Podcast. With me, as always, my man, Zach. Zach, what's up? Man, how do you feel after coming out of a game in Germany? You got the dub. How are we feeling? How do you got to get bright and early? Have your little pancakes and Chiefs?
We eating W's, baby. That's all we can ask for.
Yes, sir. Got the dub. It feels good. It feels good. I would say, on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm feeling about a 75%. I probably should feel more, but you know me. I'm a little greedy when it comes to Chiefs because how he started the game. But we're going to get into all of that. How did you just, feel just on Sunday in general? Because, I was talking to you before we started this podcast, is I had to get up early. I was getting up early, and I was telling you on Saturday, I'm sitting there and I look at my clock. I get up in the morning. It's 9:40. I put my phone back down. I get up in a hurry. I'm like, oh my God, the game. I'm thinking, oh wait, no, it's Saturday. I'm good. I was ready for this Dolphins game. Sunday, I get up. I have my little Frosted Flakes. I was gonna have some Fruit Loops, but I was like, we're going Frosted Flakes. We're going. We're gonna go with our Frosted Flakes. I was ready for the game. Talk about just how you were feeling going into the game and just watching them in that early morning Germany game.
Well, my morning was great because most Sundays I volunteer at like a homeless shelter in the mornings, and so I was already up well before the game started.
Right.
So I was ready to go. I was able to leave that a little bit early to go watch the game, and that was one of the best mornings I've had in a while. So I was feeling pumped for the game, especially. Yeah, exactly. Like there's something about starting your day off with a Chiefs W is different. It's much better than having to wait for it.
Right. And it was kind of nice. Like, it's weird, like, you sit there and, like, the day did feel longer because, like, your Sundays, it's typically like, okay, like, for me, it's, I go to church, after church, I go watch, the 1 o'clock game because the Chiefs never play at 1 o'clock. They're always playing at, for you, 3:30, for me, 4. So it's like, they're always playing that 4:30 game for me. So I'm usually waiting around all day, I get to watch it. But it's like, I got to watch, 3 games. All day. So it was just like, okay, wow, like I'm really waiting for, just these other games. It was good to watch. We got to watch the Ravens, we got to watch the Bengals and Bills playing a primetime game. You really just got to sit back and, it's almost like having a bye within a day. Now we're in the bye week, but it was like having a bye within a day because I was like, okay, well, I can just sit back, relax. We got it done. Like my heart can stop racing. I can calm down. I can kind of just eat my lunch in peace. I can kind of just watch the Chiefs. So like you said, it was kind of just nice being able to just like sit there and not have to worry about like, oh man, our Chiefs going to win, this, that, and the other. It's just kind of just nice having a calm Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't have to live through this scenario, but if we had lost, it might have been the worst football Sunday of the year. Even worse than last week, just because we have to sit through 9 more hours of
sitting there the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah, nine, like you just said, 9 hours. If you're sitting there watching, and I don't know about you, is when I'm watching Sunday Night Football, they have the replays of the game. Sunday Night Football to me is always just so much sweeter because when your team wins and they're just, especially now that the Chiefs are like that team and they're just replaying the highlights over and over before the game, at halftime, after the game, and you're just like, stop playing the highlights. I know the Broncos beat the Chiefs. I don't even think I watched last week's Sunday night game because I'm like, I just don't want to see them playing the Chiefs highlights over and over and over. So like you said, 9 hours. You're going to have to watch 9 hours of just Chiefs getting beat football, especially with Tyreek Hill. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really watched last week's though. It was a Bears-Chargers. So
yeah, well, yeah. I don't know about you. Why do you? This year, I feel like last year they flexed out a lot of these games, but this year it's been like bad. I feel like bad primetime games.
Yeah, I feel like early in the season, they don't really. I mean, I know that they can only flex, I think, after week 5, is it? And I was surprised
I think it's
they didn't
like
flex out
8, but
last
they're
week.
at that point.
Yeah. I guess it was because last week was 2 big markets. They decided to keep it, but
Yeah, I mean, there's some games coming up. They've announced they're not going to flex. I'd love to see the Chiefs more on to some primetime games, but getting to the primetime game we watched this week was the Chiefs and Dolphins, of course. Some of the things you predicted almost to a T, you didn't get the score right, but
no, I
I
didn't.
mean,
I was way
you get
off
some
about the
points.
offense.
You were off
The
about the offense, but hell, you said, do we keep them under 17? You said, do we keep them to 17, but we kept them to 14. We did even better. So you get some props for that for sure.
Hey, I appreciate that. I was thinking about that today. I was like, I'm pretty sure most of the things that we said last week came true, which normally with us being
Yeah,
like
and
such
I think there
homers.
was a certain player you talked about too. Yeah, Sneed.
Oh yeah, Sneed. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was
I mean,
great.
you talked about Sneed. So I'll say, some of the things I'm going to ask you is just like, what are your kind of just overall feeling after a game like that?
I mean, you can't ask for more, in my opinion. I mean, you could ask for more offense, but that's
Right.
just like no other fan base in the league would do that except for the Chiefs because we're so accustomed to greatness. Like if the Bills or the Bengals or the Niners beat one of the best teams in the league by a touchdown, they would not be asking for anything more. And so I'm completely satisfied. And it was very reassuring hearing Mahomes after the game saying, I promise you, he was like, I promise we're going to figure this offense out. And that's
Right.
just so reassuring coming from the best player in the game. He knows that they're underperforming, but he also knows that they can write this shit. And so I'm extremely confident. This was a huge game for tiebreakers. The defense played amazing. So I'm just happy. I'm a happy guy.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're nailing it right on the head. And we talked about this a smidge before the pod. Is like turning on ESPN, turning on Get Up, turning on just Fox Sports. It's like, oh, the Chiefs are good, but they're just not great. And it's like, okay, but like you just said, if the Bengals won that way, if the Bills won that way, they would not be saying this. They just go, wait, but you guys have Mahomes. You have to score 30. No, they have to score 21. They have to score 24, and they can win game. That's how I'm looking at this season. I'm really curious about this. We're going to get into this because it's during the bye and what some of the things the Chiefs need to work on is if you can have where you have a guy like Rice and you can run the ball. And I think they did a little just Andy Reid. I know you're probably itching over there and probably had a eat a cheeseburger to calm himself down after the game because I know he didn't like running the ball as much as he was on Sunday morning. But I think if the Chiefs can kind of just go back to like the early Andy Reid days, it's like kind of run the ball, get the ball to like your Jeremy Maclin type receiver as like Rice, and just you have Kelsey, you have your security blanket. And if Mahomes can learn in this bye week to just boom, 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 just kind of just pick up chains, move the ball second and short, third and short. But something I was going to ask you is if we kind of go to that kind of just move the chains type offense, get it on third and short, and kind of just turn it into like the Bengals. Do you think they can do that because of their third and short problems?
I think so. It's mainly play calling. It's not personnel when it comes to third and short. We have the O line, or at least we are supposed to have the O line. We have Pacheco, we have Mahomes, we have Kelsey. That right there should be an elite third and short offense. It should be. And
Yeah.
so one thing I'm thinking is maybe Reed is just playing around or trying because we all know that his regular season play calling is drastically different than his playoff play calling. That's the
Yeah.
reason why, apart from the second half of the Bengals game 2 years ago, we haven't really we haven't really gotten mad at Andy for the stuff he does during the regular season during the postseason. We just kind of it doesn't happen.
Right.
And so if Reed starts making the better play calls or if he's just trying stuff out for now, we have the personnel where we can play that type of game and still be effective.
And I think that nails it really just right where the Chiefs are right now. Is I think Andy Reid, and he's such a great coach that to right now to a fault, he's like it's like it sounds so dumb. I mean, again, just because what we're saying compared to what a guy like Andy Reid is like, he has such a powerful toy. So he's like, I need to have this powerful toy at 100. We're trying to throw the ball deep to MVS, and it's like, Andy, but they can't catch the ball downfield. Andy, but they can't get open downfield. So Mahomes, the longer Mahomes holds onto the ball, that offensive line is going to be like, Andy, make it Patrick get the ball out of his hands. He's got to get the ball in his hands. Or only so long we can keep these guys. So I think if Andy kind of looks out and goes, okay, yeah, we do have to come to this team where, again, we are just getting the ball quicker, like they were last year. They were getting the ball quick. It was kind of just like you mentioned, kind of in a previous podcast. Like they had a guy like Juju Smith, who's basically just another tight end. He was last year. He was just another tight end that just knew how to get open, boom, post guys up, and just get the ball and pick up first downs. If we can have, for the love of God, any receiver just do that, just on third down, just second down, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5. Just get to the sticks. We can get 2 yards with Pacheco. We just can't get Q. I really think that's it. I think is they still want to run an offense where in the past, and I was kind of mentioning this to my dad, is this just as much as any Chiefs fans. When you see Mahomes running around, you're like, okay, he's about to find somebody. Or you see him throw deep, you're like, complete. Now I go incomplete. And I think it's just weird. And that's all I was just kind of just wanting to see where you're at is, do you think they really do just need to just, in this bye week, just kind of look at this team and say, this is the type of direction we're going in? What do you think that direction is?
The direct Alex Smith type ball we need some Alex Smith elements, like not necessarily Alex Smith, but what we did when Alex Smith was our quarterback, a more limited offense that can move the chains. If you think about it, like when Alex Smith was quarterback, our weapons were not really notable outside of Kelsey and Macklin, I guess, and Jamal Charles.
Yeah. Right. And that was later on.
Yeah. And not too, that's not too different than what we have now. And we have a much better quarterback, and our O-line is better than
much better offensive line.
Yeah. And we just need to be able to move the ball down, matriculate down the field, like Hank Stram said, matriculate down the field.
Yeah, there you go.
With a defense like this, with a defense like this, we don't have to try to do anything that 18-19 Chiefs were doing. We don't have to at all. We need to not turn the ball over. We need to play like last year, except for a little more watered down because we do not have Juju, which Juju, even though he's not a crazy receiver, I mean, he had 900 yards. No one on this team.
But he was a guy.
Sniffing. Yeah. No one on this team is sniffing 900 yards. And so we did lose our best receiver, but we need to just matriculate down the field. And I think the bye week is Andy's going to figure it out during the bye week, I'm sure. And we're going to come out against the Eagles and put up points.
And I can completely agree. I already got a lot of people saying, well, how are you going to beat the Eagles? How are you going to beat this team? We'll get into all that. Chiefs have 15 days. 15 days. They just played on the 5th. They don't have until the 20th till they got to play in their next game. That is a long time for Andy Reid. We all know Andy Reid's record off of the bye week. I think he only has 3 losses in his career after a bye week. Yeah. There's something different when Andy Reid is able to get he's going to have 14 days from not playing football to playing football with his guys to get things right, with his coaches to get things right. And I think, like you said, they do need to play Alex Smith type ball. Even that last season with Alex Smith, where it was just that they didn't have a good defense at all. But what they do, he still passed for 4,000 yards. He still had a running back that was able to get over 1,000 yards. He had 2 receivers that were able to get 1,000 yards. I think you do have 2 capable 1,000-yard receivers. I don't know if they get. I think Kelsey can. But I don't know about Rice. But you have guys who on just short downage, like we saw Sky Moore a little bit more on Sunday morning. Just give him the ball, just boom, boom. Kadarius Toney here and there. You have compared to what Patrick Mahomes has been dealing with his defense. If you can find a way to keep teams off the field and just kill clock, your defense can keep teams under 21. No, like literally. But so far, what we can judge is your defense can hold teams under 21 points this season. So how much of just this season do you think they can rely on the defense? Can they go make a deep playoff run with this type of defense and the offense continue to play like this?
Well, you need to have both sides of the ball for the playoffs because every unit has a bad day. We can't just rely on the defense because, I mean, there's teams that move in the playoffs with a great defense and then they allow 30 in their playoff game and they don't have an offense. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
So we need to definitely shapen up on offense. But I can rely on this defense because I've been looking at this defense as, oh, they're the team playing in red with the arrowhead on their head. They're not a legit defense. Like I've been looking at it in like a biased perspective negatively, where it's like the Chiefs and the Mahomes there, they don't have a good defense. Like we're holding teams to 14, but are we really? You know what I'm saying? Like when the Jags kept catching balls out of bounds and all this like fluky stuff, but it's just so consistent. We haven't allowed more than 21 points. And so I really think that this is an elite unit, top 3 for sure. And so we can rely on them, but we if we want to win a Super Bowl, the offense needs to get back to where it was, or at least close.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is like you're kind of, and I will admit I'm doing the same thing. It's like I'm kind of waiting for the Chiefs defense to just like fail. And I'm like, okay, they played Justin Jefferson, they clamped him. They played Tyreek Hill, they clamped him. They played Garrett Wilson, they clamped him. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right, maybe you guys are legit. And I would say Chris Jones is kind of like he's kind of cooled down. Like you got Charles Omeni who came in and was just like, I'm gonna be prime Derek Thomas for a couple of weeks. Like all of a sudden it's like, okay, like is this?
Did I get kicked? Yo.
I lost you.
Yeah. Is it you or me?
No. I think that was me. I think it was
Okay.
me because mine all of a sudden went away. I'm like, oh shit. All right, we're good. We're good.
All right, cool.
We'll continue. All right, ready?
Yep.
Oh, some technical difficulties right there, guys, but we are back. We're just continuing to talk about our defense and how well the defense was playing. The ghost of Derek Thomas Pass decided to swoop in and join us as soon as I was talking about this 90s Chiefs defense. But yeah, no, I think this like you said, this like you're kind of just waiting for the Chiefs defense to just fall apart, but it's like these guys just continue to keep
It's not gonna
balling
happen.
out. And I think that's what the media is doing too. It's just like the media, you say the Chiefs have the best defense in the league, and they're like, no, it's this team. And it's like, well, no, this team is not like they're barely top 10. They're like, yeah, but you can't. The Chiefs, they're good offense, bad defense. It's like, no, this is a different team. The Chiefs are winning a different way. And I think people are still kind of in this negative type of tone about the Chiefs because they're like, well, you have Mahomes, you have to put up 30 to win. And it's like, but look what's happening in the game. They're playing bad, right? But we're still winning games. Like, is that not? Am I not crazy for that?
The media, they don't know what they're talking about, or they do, but they don't say it because it doesn't get clicks. They can't just be like, yeah, the best player in the world, he doesn't need to score. Like their offense is okay, their defense is
Yeah,
great.
it's boring. They don't. They
still
want
the
to. They got to juice it up.
Yeah, but I'm honestly getting super excited just having this conversation with you about this defense because it helps me put it into perspective about like I'm a huge sample size guy, and we've reached a sample size that is almost significant, and this defense has not broken once. The worst we've looked was probably against Zach Wilson, and that's probably because we underestimated them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at the depth. We're rotating guys in and out. Our third string linebacker is playing well. Our second string linebacker is playing well. Willie Gay's playing the best football by far since we drafted him. McDuffie is elite, not just in coverage, but he's like a second Snead out there tackling. I feel like every time there's a run play or a blitz, Snead or McDuffie is just making an insane play. And I remember back when we drafted Snead, I was like, this might be one of the best tackling DBs I've seen, or corners. And then McDuffie comes out here, and it's like McDuffie's better than Snead at tackling. So I'm just excited about this whole thing. Mike Edwards with huge plays.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
we did not miss with any addition. And Spags is just on a different level right now because normally Spags, he starts off slow and it looks like, oh, we have another 2018
Yep.
defense, historically bad. And then as we get to the playoffs, it starts to shaping up. But if we're still following that trend, we're gonna have the best defense in the league for sure by the time playoff comes around. Because Spags finally has his guys. We've given him guys where he can play his scheme, bring pressure, and it's a beautiful thing. And we're doing this against great elite offenses.
And that's what I think people. It's just they're scrambling right now to try to like every team has their knock. So like they're praying to God. They're every Sunday teams are praying to God that Sky Moore, MVS, hands they don't take that sledgehammer and just take the bricks off their hand because it's like if you have a Cincinnati Bengals MVS, that the AFC MVS, and you have Sky Moore, Super Bowl Sky Moore, Kadarius Tony Sky Moore, if they can just become mid-level receivers, I don't know how you don't say this team is almost a guaranteed. I'm gonna sound like Charles Barkley, guaranteed Super Bowl team because you've never had Mahomes have it where he's after the games going, oh yeah, the defense is winning us these games.
Yeah.
He's never going to shit on his defense, but he's going, the defense is the reason why we're the best, the number one in the AFC. And it's like, and every week, like you said as a Chiefs fan, you're like, wait, is this like pinch me? Is this real? Like, is our defense really playing like this? And real quick, what you brought up, Mike Edwards, you're like, people kind of, he's okay. He came from Tampa Bay. He's playing great. He's throwing, no look passes to Brian Cook. Brian Cook, who's coming up being a hard hitting safety, and then Trent McDuffie, Mickey D's. This man has, I think it is now 3 forced fumbles.
Four. It's four.
Or four.
It's four. I think he's like close to league lead.
Four. Yeah, he's going for. He's not even a DN. He has 4 forced fumbles, and I think the biggest thing, and you mentioned it perfectly, Spags wants corners that can tackle. In the past, he had guys that, again, were not guys that want to go out and tackle. You have your length guy in Watson and Williams, guys who haven't even been talked about on the other side of the field who are shutting down some of the best number twos, Waddle, and you have guys like Calvin Ridley and some of these other guys are like, these guys aren't slouches. We would take those guys on the Chiefs in a heartbeat. And they're just quietly just like, well, what about us over here? We're just, we're shutting these guys down. But Trent McDuffie, and like you said before, is just people are so hesitant to just giving the Chiefs defense their just roses right now. They're starting to. I will say they're starting to because they're like, wait, Mahomes is still in the Chiefs. Why don't we just talk about Mahomes? It's like, but he ain't he is the reason we were going to win games, but he ain't the reason why we're winning games. It's these other guys.
It's honestly unbelievable. I'm getting geeked up, listening to this. Willie, I want to bring up Willie Gay again because over the last 3 weeks, how many plays has Willie Gay made that looks Nick Bolton-esque, but he's faster?
Right.
Where he's in the backfield, blowing up screen passes, blowing up outside zones, blowing up pitches. It's our linebacker. We might have the best linebacking core in the league. And
yeah,
we might have a top 5 secondary. I mean, we do. We have McDuffie and Snead back there. You know what I'm saying? And Justin.
And that's what I want to ask you. So when you have a team, and I was kind of in this debate with somebody else, they're like, well, the Ravens defense is better. And I go, okay, defensive line. I'm like, Amenahue, Karlaftis, Dana, who has more sacks than who's almost leading our team in sacks, as top 15 in sacks. I'm like, okay, he's like top 10, I think, in sacks. Yeah. Chris Jones is a Hall of Famer. Amenahue just has 3 sacks, and he just decided he was suspended. He's out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, so they don't have a better D line. I'm like, linebackers next. We're not going to even talk about that. Yeah. And I go, but then we have our secondary, who just said, Tyreek Hill, sit down. You're still going to score touchdowns for us, even though you're on the Dolphins. Justin Jefferson, sit down. Garrett Wilson, sit down. Ridley, Christian Kirk, like you name them, like all these wide receivers who are just talent after talent after talent. Then you got people. Well, now you have to deal with AJ Brown. We just dealt with Tyreek and Justin Jefferson. You think we're going to sit there and go, okay, yeah, shiver me timbers. We got AJ Brown, who's a great receiver.
Yeah.
I don't want to get cocky on here. Who's a great receiver, but I'm just confused where it's like, what? And they're not saying we are perfect. There's going to be games where teams get us. We saw that with the Broncos. They got us, which surprisingly, like you said, the Jets and the Broncos have been the only teams to kind of like put some points up. But to be honest, that was a little bit on the offense. What's another defense where you would say these are your top three defenses in the NFL right now?
Okay, Cleveland would have been the obvious choice, and they still are in the top three for sure. But
yeah, Cleveland's nice.
Yeah, I'm confused. Now, I listened to lots of Browns fans talk about this, and they said that it was just uncharacteristically bad from their secondary against Indianapolis, where they let up, I think, 30-something points to Indianapolis. There's not much to excuse. I would say Cleveland, us, and Baltimore. Everyone expected the Eagles and Niners to be up there. Niners still have the same talent they did. In fact, they're way better talent-wise, especially on the defense.
Yeah, than most teams.
They just haven't produced at all. I think the Niners DVOA on the defensive side is like 16th in the league. So just middle of the pack so far. And then Philadelphia last year set the record for sacks. And this year their D-line is still great, but their secondary, even though they still have big names in their secondary, and they did trade for Byard, their pass defense is not good at all.
Yeah.
So I'd say us, Baltimore, and the Browns for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I really want to. Obviously, we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Eagles because, like I said, we got Mahomes days until our next game. We got Mahomes days.
Mahomes days.
and yeah, we got a while till our next game, which is good though. This and so does the Eagles. So for some of our Eagles listeners, I know we do have some. This is going to be a grudge match. You guys want revenge. The Chiefs want to prove that it wasn't just the refs that kind of just got it. You're also coming where the Chiefs offense is they know their beans right now. They know they're like, guys, we scored 14. Like the defense is really just kind of just we're riding the coattail right now, which again, I'm not going to sit here. And as a Chiefs fan, and I need everybody in the kingdom to listen to me, you guys, if the Chiefs can continue, and you guys wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have Mahomes. If this was anyone else, if this was Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, you guys would be just fine with every single one of these wins. I know we have the shiny weapon with the nuclear arm. If Mahomes can take a break for a year, and we have where it's just a Pacheco who is managing the ball, and you have where Patrick Mahomes has to make plays when he has to, and they have a defense again that is the best in the NFL. That we haven't said that since I was in my mother's womb. It's okay.
Not even.
You can win games. You can win games like this because that tells you that you should be. This should be. I'm starting to get mad at the kingdom. This should be your most confident you've ever been in a season. And you may be asking me, why, Jayden, why Zach? Because you have Patrick Mahomes. If your defense is playing that good, you have a Hall of Fame play caller. Guess what's going to happen eventually? They're going to figure it out. There's going to be a game where all of a sudden they put up 40, and you're like, oh, everything's kumbaya. You're going to have it where Sky Moore doesn't look like a high school receiver. I mean,
you do Sky Moore dirty, bro.
At the kingdom, or are you on the same page here?
Yeah, I'm on the same page for sure. But you do Sky Moore dirty.
It's astonishing to me where I'll go on, a lot of these podcasts after, and shout out Airhead Addict. I love listening to them after the Chiefs games, and just the Chiefs fans in the comments who've just gotten spoiled over the years. Let's not forget Brady Quinn. Let's not forget Matt Castle. Let's not forget Damian Heward. Those years happened. Now we're in a time where, again, we have a good team. We're going to be okay. And we've seen other teams, like the Bengals who start out bad. They're catching some fire. You've seen other teams in the AFC drop some bad games. I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine. And again, they're going into the bye week. Who's a guy in the bye week where you're saying if that, like, out of every single player, kind of, if he can come out of the bye week, if this guy, this one guy, even if it's Travis Kelce or whoever, this one guy can just elevate his game a tad, this team will start scoring in the 30s again.
Kadarius Toney. And I've been thinking about this all day. Now, he doesn't even have the snap counts to make the difference at this point in time.
Right.
Looking at the snap counts, Kadarius Toney played 7 snaps, which is good for 12% of our offensive snaps, which is nothing. And so, well, I want that to go up because, I mean, he caught that slant and turned into like a 15, 20-yard gain. And
yeah, right.
He has that agility and change of direction ability where he can get open off the first cut of a short route. And I just want to see him unleashed because he had a really bad first game, but that first game shows that we had bigger plans for him this season because he had like 6 or 7 targets. And so we didn't go into the season thinking Toney was going to play 12% of the snaps. We went in the season thinking he was going to play 40 and then work him up once he started producing. And so I'm taking this bye week as like a mini off season where we can hit the reset button on Toney and try to get him in the offense because he's the most dynamic. I mean, other than Rashee Rice at this point, he's the most dynamic receiver we have. And with the main problem being our receivers, there's really nothing that could be worse. You know what I'm saying? So I'm hoping that we up Toney's usage and get him installed.
Yeah, I think if a guy like Toney, because again, you have a lot of people are saying this, when you have an explosive quarterback, he's going to want to make explosive plays. Well, we all know Kadarius Toney is a guy, if you can get him the ball and he just can turn and face 3 yards out, he can majority of the time turn it into just, even if he turns it into 2 more yards, 5 yards. He's a guy who can make just a guy semi-miss and boom, he can get a couple yards. And I think he's a guy where, like you said, I think they try to use him too much in just yards where it's like, 15, 20 down the field. Even if you had it where he just goes out in a little out route, boom, you give him the pass real quick. He can make a couple moves, and he's going to get you a couple yards. I think, like you said, he's a guy I thought would really just – they would use more. I feel like MVS and Sky Moore, it's just like I think they're two just guys where if they could play ball, they would help so much because you have a guy like Sky Moore who, again, is really quick off the ball. And then you have a guy who, MVS, is 6'4" and probably a top 10 fastest guy in the NFL at receiver and just can burn anyone like we saw on Sunday morning and then just cannot catch a pass. So it is frustrating when it's like, what the guys are capable of. You know what Kadarius Toney is capable of. You just got to, again, you got to see him out there when it's like, you got to be able to test guys. You can't just keep going back to the well, even though the well's dry. Rice, we know Rice is. Rice is going to be Mahomes's guy. He's going to be Mahomes' go-to guy, and his burst is unreal. That touchdown is unreal. So yeah, talk a little bit about Rice, man.
He's so exciting to watch. I think I said last podcast, he's the anti-Demarcus Robinson. He catches the ball, and his ability to just move forward without the guys trying to tackle him affecting him is just crazy. And coming out, he wasn't this prospect that was like blazing speed, acceleration, yak. It's like, this is coming out of nowhere. This is not what we expected. I don't remember what he ran, like a 4.5. He doesn't look like he runs a 4.5 when he catches the ball and immediately gets bolting up the field. Yeah. So I honestly think he's gotten faster since he was in college because this is not the guy we thought we drafted.
Yeah, and I was kind of saying that on Sunday. It's like they're like, well, he's running routes. He's not like Tyreek Hill where you're like, oh my God. But like he catches the ball and he's like, oh, I need to run really, really fast now. And he takes off versus Denver. I think the first time they played him, he caught like a little slant and like turned it into like 20 yards. I'm like, he just has that burst. I want to see more of just, again, if they can find ways to, in the screen game, just, the only thing I would like to see more with Rice is obviously his blocking ability. And I think that's why people are like, well, why doesn't he start? Why isn't he out there more? Andy Reid loves wide receivers who can block. I think if he can be a little bit better blocker, you'll see him out there more. I think same with Toney. I think that's another thing with Andy. He's like, I like guys that can block, even though Reid doesn't like running the ball, which I don't really
That
know.
yeah, I don't.
I don't really know why they always say, "Oh, Andy Reid loves receivers." You can be like Demarcus Robinson. That's the only reason why he was on the
Yeah,
Chiefs for so long is
Pringle
because
Pringle was
he
also
could
great at
block
that.
well. Yeah, so it's like he just loves receivers that can block, even though we don't like to run the ball. But speaking of running the ball, how do you, a guy like Pacheco has been doing these last couple of games? Are you like kind of buying or selling that? Like when people are saying the Chiefs do need to run the ball a little bit more, are you kind of buying that, or are you just kind of like, well, like it's Mahomes. The more you have it in Mahomes' hand, the better you are.
I buy it, but I don't. Andy is looking at it like, or he knows obviously 1,000,000,000 times more than I do about football, but I feel like he's looking
Yeah,
at it
right.
as if passing is the correct thing to do, like it was in previous years. Like I didn't. Of course, when we have a lead, it's different. Like against the Bengals in the championship game, I wish we ran the ball more. But lots of times, Andy's been right to continue passing because it's the better option. It's more efficient than running. But this year, that's not necessarily the case. And so I feel like he's operating as if we still have that top passing offense when it's just not there yet. So I do wish we would run the ball more.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I definitely think in the past there's been games where it is clear cut and obvious. And you saw him a little bit more this Dolphins game, and it was able to set up the pass. Like you mentioned, that 2021 Bengals game where they were dropping 8 guys, and it
I
was
feel
like,
I feel
you
like
have
we
to run the
reference
ball.
that game. I feel like we reference that game all the time because lots of the struggles that we go through, like in certain points year after year, just all will go back to that game.
Yeah, and again, I think if you have a defense like you do right now, and you are able to just manage the clock, and you're like, man, they've been out there a long time. Then when your offense does score, and they go on a 9 to 10 minute drive, you got to go beat up by Chris Jones. It's like that's not fun. The one time you do get a chance to, with your ball in the hand and you're Joe Burrow, you got a Menahue you are coming from the side, you got Karlaftis coming from the side, along with Mike Dana, then you got Chris Jones coming to the middle. It's like that is not fun. Along with a guy who we've not even mentioned is Drew Tranquil. Like he's played absolutely phenomenal in Nick Bolton's spot. And you have Nick Bolton, which again, Willie Gay. And if we just had if it was in a world where it was just Willie Gay was a starting linebacker and it was just him and Drew, I mean, we wouldn't be sitting there going, oh man, like we have a guy who was second, if I'm not mistaken, in tackles last year, Nick Bolton. And it's like you have a Pro Bowl linebacker who's not even playing right now for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's not even playing right now. The safeties, again, who I thought were going to be a huge concern, Justin Reed, who last year I wasn't really a fan of, but this year, my God, he's been playing well. He's looking like a honey badger that first year he was with us. So again, I just think going into this bye week is this next 5 to 6 stretch of games. It's and this is really where I think is a nitty gritty is they got and I don't think this order, but they have Philly, they have Buffalo, they have the Raiders, they have the Chargers, they have Bengals, Raiders again, Patriots, and Green Bay. How are you feeling going into the home stretch after the bye? Is this like the make or break part? Do you think it's where someone if the offense continues to play like this, where it's like the Chiefs could lose that first seed?
I don't think we're going to lose the first seed because after the Eagles game, there's a lot of more pass heavy offenses coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the PFF grades right now, and what we had said last pod was Drew Tranquil is a slight upgrade in pass coverage over Nick Bolton, but a massive downgrade in run defense. And I'm looking at his PFF grade. In run defense, it was only 25. 25 is terrible. But in pass coverage, it was 69, and pass rushing, it was 68. And so basically what we thought would happen happened exactly. I'm kind of scared for against the Eagles without Bolton because you know how huge he was in that game. We don't win that game without Bolton. And it's not just because of those like fluke plays with the 2 fumble recoveries, I guess, what should have been 2. It's just overall the tackles he made on the running backs. Like he was an amazing player that game, and missing him is definitely going to be tough, especially looking at Drew Tranquil's rush defense grade. But after that, lots of, like you said, the Chargers, the Bills, these teams don't rush the ball like that. And I'm looking really
Yeah.
confident against, especially these AFC teams that we're bound to go against.
Yeah, and that's where it's just, and you sit there and you think, well, and a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say this. They say, well, the Chargers, they're able to play down to the last millisecond with the Chiefs when the Chiefs are at their best. That's what we want to say. But if this isn't the Chiefs at their best and the Chargers beat the Chiefs at their best, then how could the Chiefs go beat a team like the Bengals or the Eagles when they play them at their very best when they're in the Super Bowl? How right now the Chiefs are still trying to figure it out on offense. How do you answer a question like that? When people say the Bengals, they went to overtime, and the Eagles almost went to overtime with the Chiefs' best.
There's a reason you play the game and every matchup is so drastically different from the other. Like
Right.
us playing against the Bengals versus the Chargers versus the Eagles is three completely different game plans, three completely different. Just like, I mean, the Chargers play us better than any team plays us other than the Bengals, I'd say. And it's partially because they know us so well. I mean, we play against them twice a year. They're in our division. Division games are always weird. That's why the Broncos game, I didn't take much from it because it's not like we lost to a team of their caliber that's like in the NFC that we never see. We lost to a team that knows us well and that played us 2 weeks prior. And so every game is different. And as long as our defense is playing like this and our offense starts to pick it up, we should be favored in every single game. It doesn't matter who we're playing.
Yeah, I like that. And I think talk about, and unlike me, sadly, I've never been to this sacred place called Arrowhead, but all the toughest games coming up for the Chiefs. You have the Eagles at home after a bye week. You have the Bills at home. You have, even though the Bills right now, or let's be honest, they look like boo boo the foo, but you have the Bills at home. You have the Bengals at home. You play the Chargers on the road. But you have some of the tough games left in the season where, again, really the only teams that could really come down to losing the number one seed would be maybe the Bengals if they continue to just play like they're playing. I couldn't really see the Bills at this point just catching fire. But yeah, that's really the only game I see where, if the Chiefs slip up some games, the Bengals are kind of at the same record at that time with the Chiefs. But talk a little bit about how much of an advantage it is playing at Arrowhead for the Chiefs.
It's a large advantage, but it doesn't really show in the numbers because we have a better record on the road than we do at home in the Mahomes era.
Yeah, so it is weird.
Yeah, it's obviously an advantage. I mean, having to travel and then having that noise, we've seen it.
And the cold.
Yeah, we've seen it happen with like false start penalties and just miscommunication.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't really show in the numbers and when we look at away versus home. And maybe that's just because we have an advantage both on home and away because Mahomes is so good on the road. It's kind of weird.
On the road, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but especially come playoff time, there's no doubt whether we want to play at Arrowhead versus anywhere else. When it's cold, it's funny because the Bills are in the coldest place in the league, and they're terrible in the cold.
Yeah,
which is just backwards. Lots of the good teams in the AFC are used to playing in the cold, like Baltimore, Cincinnati. But the noise factor, just the intimidation factor, it's huge. And I've only been to one playoff game at Arrowhead. It was that wild card game against the Steelers that we won a couple years ago. And it actually started off pretty rough because TJ Watt, I think, had a pick six or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but then the crowd just took over and we scored like 30 consecutive points and it was dope. So,
and I think, it's different from years in the past is where in the 90s, it was like, and they always say in the 90s, Arrowhead was at its loudest because they were always on defense because you had Elvis Grbac and you just had guys outside of Joe Montana who just weren't great. So you're punting a lot, you're on defense a lot. So the crowd is consistently having to yell more. They're, on offense you're quieter, defense you're louder. So that's why I think it's a little bit more interesting is when you have just like that true Kansas City blood team where it's just like they have that raw defense again, where it's just that tough, like sluggers on defense, and you're going to be back in Arrowhead during some of these primetime cold games. Bengals on New Year's Eve. You'll have the Bills coming back in town, which the last time the Bills were in Kansas City, they got embarrassed. So, right, 2 years ago, they embarrassed the Bills, embarrassed of the Chiefs, and they played them last year and they beat them. So it's like Arrowhead. I feel the Arrowhead is going to be at its just loudest because again, the Chiefs have been on defense a little bit more this year, so they're like these fans are going to be just louder and louder than what they're used to. And like you said, it does matter because you get those false start penalties.
Yeah, why do we always play the Bills at home? Because the last 3 regular seasons,
Well,
I remember.
I think it's to do with the some people ask me that a lot. I think it's because of the way when you win your division, the Chiefs win their division, and so usually it's like if the Bills were to win the first seed or something like that, they would have it. So you usually switch every other year or whatever. But it's way when you win your division or how you win games. It's weird. I don't know why we always because I mean think of it like it was the same thing with the Bengals. Like why
we always played there.
We always played there, but now it's switched this year. So I forget why because the last time we played in Buffalo was 2020.
Yeah, 2020,
nobody was in the crowd.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they always do it. Because this year we're playing that whole division. We're playing that entire division. So I think that was why then last year we were just playing. They were the only team from that division we were going to play. Mm-hmm. So it's weird how the NFL schedules it. But hey, they scheduled it in our favor. I was glad. The only thing I wanted was Miami at Arrowhead, so it could be a Tyreek Hill revenge game. But hey, we were able to get that Tyreek Hill revenge game.
Yeah, we lucked out with the schedule this year. I'm looking at the schedule, and almost every big game is at home, apart from the Jaguars game, which big game. So
Jags and Dolphins, and that's what I'm really just trying to get at is where you have the rest of the season where it's just every big time game. You have Eagles, Bengals, and of course the Bills are a good team. I know they're struggling right now, but they are a good team. Like they have some guys on offense. So yeah, I think that's a huge advantage on just securing the first seed. And again, if you can just have it where you have some team continue to win, whoever you match up against in the divisional round, that bye week is super huge for the Kansas City Chiefs. And like you said, they have the bye week this week. So yeah, I really like where the Chiefs are right now. I think a lot of people are I think a lot of people are just again they're frustrated that the offense is scoring, and it's a little overreaction. I mean, is it not just an overreaction? I feel like
it might be a proper reaction, but they're acting as if we're not going to play like we have the last 2 weeks. That's for sure. Because if you look at the season long stats, we're still a good offense. And so I think they're thinking we're going to play like this every week. It's like, no, they did a good job covering Kelsey, and Mahomes is going to figure out how to play if Kelsey is taken away. Because just like he figured out how to play without Tyreek, just like he figured out how to play against the two deep, it just takes a little bit of time. He's going to figure it out.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Again, the Chiefs will have 15 days to figure it out until their next game versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night in Arrowhead. It's the Kelsey Bowl once again. So I'm interested in that game. I think that'll be huge. We're about to get out of here, guys, on the TPT podcast. Zach, was there anything that that came up for you on this Dolphins game that you really just had in mind where you're like, this is something I really just want to talk about here on the podcast?
I mean, I already touched on it, but Trent McDuffie is a blossoming star. When I watch other corners play around the league, I don't see guys that make plays like he makes. There's a lot of lockdown corners. I don't really notice Sauce Gardner when I'm watching because he is just so locked down. But there's that element with Trent where he is locked down and he's making plays like he's a linebacker against the run, against screen passes. He's my next Chiefs jersey. I've actually only had 3 Chiefs jerseys or 4 in my life. Trent Green, Jamal Charles, Patrick Mahomes, and Kareem Hunt. And so he's going to be my 5th. Yeah, he's going to be my 5th. And I'm just so excited to watch him because he's so young, so talented. And that's what I've just been thinking about this week since the game.
Try McDuffie's, Mickey D's, keep getting it done. He's already got a 4-piece forced fumble. We love that. Again, big bye week, like big bye week. I almost, like I said, I'm going to pull a Charles Barkley. I guarantee you, after this bye week, everyone's going to be coming in, and this next game could be a shootout. You never know. All of a sudden, it could just be back and forth. Like, oh my God, the Chiefs defense, they may have given up a lot of points. They may have given up 27 points, but it's like that Chiefs offense scored 34, 35 points. So it's like, hey, I feel that big-time game, that Mahomes game is just right around the corner. He's going to find somebody this week and be like, hey, we got the old the field in the back of my house. Let's go catch some passes.
Yeah, Mahomes is still the MVP favorite, which is just wild. Like,
wild.
He's underperforming. He's not getting touchdown passes like he normally does.
Right.
When I look at his stat lines, that they're pedestrian. I'm like, he's still the favorite. I mean, it's not surprising because it's Vegas, and they're predicting the rest of the season as well with that number. But it's like no one has gotten away from.
Do you know what he's on pace
for? He's on pace for 4,600 yards and like 34 touchdowns. So just like super pedestrian numbers for him. Like, the worst of his career.
Any other quarterback, we're like, oh my God, like that's not bad by any means.
It's not, but it's like
Mahomes, it's usually like closer to 5,000 and then like the 40 touchdowns. But again, he could easily turn that into 40 if he has like a 4 or 5 touchdown game.
Yeah. For sure.
Like he could be on pace for 40. And that, like you said, that is weird because Lamar is not like he's another first seed.
Lamar's stats don't do him justice.
First seed, but Jaylen is like, I got to play better. And like, he's a guy that's still not even like balling out.
Yeah. Look, if I had to pick right now, I'd probably choose Lamar, but his stats don't do him justice.
No, again, it's no one right now. This has been a really weird NFL season where it's just no one is just like, no, you have the MVP. No, you have. It's just like no one is just like clear cut. Like last year, it was like, okay, it's got to be Mahomes or Hurts. Like, and then when Hurts got hurt, it was like, okay, it's Mahomes. Like he almost had 50 touchdowns again. What do you have? 48 touchdowns?
I think like 43.
48?
43, I think.
I know. Yeah, I know he had a lot. I know, like I said, again, people were talking about how he had the second most passing yards in the season, and then he had a lot of touchdowns. So it's just, again, it's just weird how much one guy like Juju can change the course of the season.
Mahomes at 45 combined last year.
45.
That's a lot.
So
that's a lot.
That's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So he almost had his 2018 season again.
Yeah.
Like he almost had his 2018 season again. So like Mahomes right now, Chiefs fans, like, let's not be spoiled. Like you just said, he still will. Right now, he would, if the season ends today, he'd probably get MVP.
Which is stupid.
And
I don't even like that. That's weird.
And looking back in 10 years, you'd say, who was the best team in the NFL that season? And you'd go, the Eagles and Chiefs, like the year before. Yeah. You're on pace for last year, folks. Like I said, trust in the Chiefs. Trust in Mr. Cheeseburger, Andy Reid. He's going to figure it out. I think the Chiefs will be just fine. We will be back later in the week. We got some fun things planned for you guys. We're going to have some fun bye week things. We're going to talk a little bit about some other teams. We're going to talk about some of our favorite Chiefs. That's going to be fun. We're going to take a little trip down memory lane, talk about some OG Chiefs. You already know I'm going to probably rock it. You guys can't see it, but I got my Jamal Charles jersey behind me. I may be talking about him. Some of my other guys on here. We may have some more guests, some former Chiefs on here. We're going to keep it on the down low. But me and Zach will be talking to some former Chiefs here soon. So make sure you guys subscribe to the TPT podcast. Of course, go check us out on Instagram and go check out. Listen, I'm going to make this very clear. If you don't go check out Best Bets, which is going to air every Friday, your girlfriend will leave you guys. It's because you'll be rich if you listen to Best Bets. You'll be rich if you listen to Best Bets because they're going to hook you guys up. Dustin did well with his bets. We're going to find out how Grizzy did on Friday with his bets. Zach, any last words for our TPTers out there before we leave?
Hey, trust this process. Trust the bye week. Trust Andy. We will right this ship on offense, and the defense is not going anywhere. Yes,
sir. Trust Andy, and Andy we trust, and Vietri trust too. He brought these guys here, and first of all, shout out Steve Spagnuolo, Coach of the Year right now. Shout out Stevie Boy. That's my guy. A lot of you guys were calling for his head last year. Shame on all of you. Shame on all of you. Burn you at the stakes. But we will see you guys next time on another episode of the TPT podcast.